Hello everyone, it's Marcia again from Then&There. I have another journal I want to share with you. This one is going to be called French Memoir. It is sort of a concept journal. In other words, in my mind as I was creating it, I had a scenario to go along with it. My story that I've created to go with it, it's kind of a it helps me in some ways, or in a lot of ways actually. It helps me to create the journal itself. This one is about a young woman whose mother recently passed away, and she is responsible for handling the estate. When she is going through her mother's things, she finds a couple boxes. In these boxes are mementos and memories from her mother's mother, so her grandmother, whose name is Marguerite. She grew up in France. She grew up in the French countryside, French country, not in a large city like Paris or any place like that, but she had dreams of going to Paris. She saved everything she could from as a child that reminded her of France or of just a different lifestyle than the country lifestyle that she was used to, or that she was raised in, which she loved the countryside. She loved the beauty of it. She loved the simplicity, and she also loved the what's the word I'm looking for? The just the I can't think of the word, but the way her parents raised her to have a good work ethic. That's the word I was looking for. The work ethic of her parents, and that she learned that, and she learned to be that way herself. So she was a very driven young woman as a child, or as a young woman. She lived during the late 1800s. I would say probably late 1870s, 1880s. I know I speak of this woman as if she really existed. In my mind, I think I begin to believe it. She didn't really. It's my imagination, and I just kind of go with it from that point. And the story builds and grows as I create the journal. So her grandmother was raised in the country of France, but in the country, not in a city. It was a small village. They were farmers. They were not wealthy, but they were not poor. They didn't live in poverty. They had means. And so her ambitions were not squelched. She knew what she wanted, and she went for it, and she did it. She did eventually in her young adult years. She did get to go to Paris. She lived there for a while as an actress, actually. And she attained what she set out to do. She became this city girl. She got to enjoy the fine things in life, and she got to see the glamour of it all and everything. And she learned throughout it that that was not the most important thing in life. Her family was the most important thing. And when she did marry and have children, her focus was her children. In saying all of this, in my story, this young woman who was handling her mother's estate gathered her grandmother's things from these boxes. There were two boxes, a hat box and a shoe box, or a small like jewelry box. Sorry, not a shoe box. And she wanted to preserve them in a different way, a way that could be viewed and enjoyed by other people. So she created a book with her grandmother's memories. So so we will dive into the book now. I have just tied it closed with a simple piece of muslin. It is not attached. It's just wrapped around the journal. The cover is a fabric journal. a fabric cover. It's a soft cover. It has this beautiful toile. Thank you, dear subscriber who commented that on my haul video. I can't, I was going to write that down, write her name down, but I forgot because I mispronounced it the first time. And there are two different toile fabrics in this. The cover is one, it has this beautiful pale blue background and these beautiful images of children with sheep in the countryside, a woman feeding, tending to her chickens. On the back side is some more chickens and some goats and trees. Just country images that would be normally be seen on toile fabric. This is a thicker canvas fabric, so it is quite sturdy. I left the edges frayed, of course. I stitched around it, and I also inked it a bit just to give it a bit more of an aged look. On the front here is a cluster of bits and pieces of fabric that she would have found in her grandmother's belongings. There's some canvas, some striped cotton fabric, crocheted lace, a little bit of dyed or inked cheesecloth. This is a corner piece of an embroidered hanky, a crocheted flower, some very vintage buttons. I hope you can see all the beautiful age. This is a glass button and a shell button. There's also some organza, some pink lace right here poking out, peeking out. Gotta use prettier words. Crocheted flower, a bit of lace, and they've all been sewn together to create this cluster that also has an image of, I imagine, her grandmother as a child. And it is in a frame with glossy accents over it so that it is well protected, and it's just hanging from the flower on this little chain. Oh, and I was going to say, it is simply pinned to the cover. It's not permanently attached with this, it's just pinned with this little gold safety pin, and it can be removed and put elsewhere on the book, or it can just stay as it is. On the spine, I have sewn a piece of ribbon to the interior of the book to act as the holder for this charm, which is attached with a lobster clasp. This was not my idea. It's not original to me. I've seen several people who make junk journals do this, and I love the idea, so I adapted it to my book. And on here are just some little bits of jewelry and an old skeleton key. This is a beautiful glass, milk glass bead, vintage. And these are just things that she found in her grandmother's belongings. Some of the beautiful things that she acquired when she moved to Paris as an actress. As we go into the book, we have a pocket here on this side of this beautiful floral fabric with browns and this blue teal color. We have a fleur-de-lis brad just put through the fabric, the pocket, so that you don't see the back side of it. In the pocket is a journaling card. We have a rooster weather vane and just some text in the background. This is the picture of her village where she grew up, where Marguerite is from, just printed on some cardstock. Here is the other image of the other type of toile fabric, which is just a cream colored background with more images of pasture and farm life and people and animals and things like that. Here we have a picture of a vintage advertisement of a woman picking apples, which you can also journal on the back of. A printout. Most all of the images, the vintage images that I printed were from Graphics Fairy. Aside from this image and some of the artworks that are in here, this one was from Pixabay. The artworks, I don't remember the name of the website, but I'll link them below just to let you know where I got them. This is a page from her old school notebook that she saved. A tag with some lace, a French printout of a butterfly, This page, all of the pages in here are lightly coffee dyed. They're not real dark. Some are darker than others, obviously. I just did some French script stamping on there for added interest. This is some vintage sheet music. It's copyrighted 1901, and I reinforced it with fabric because of its age. It's very brittle, and it just is pink with some butterflies and flowers on it. Here I did a little collage of some stamping of some things that she may have found in her grandmother's sewing box, and there's a key, a locket, scissors, buttons, thimble. This is a map of Paris because, of course, that's where she dreamed to go her entire life and where she did end up going. We have some vintage advertisements here, just collaged with a book page that has a French, the name of a French hotel and a city that it is in, some ruffled paper, some stamping. This is a printout of a vintage envelope that, of course, she saved things that her parents received, like envelopes, receipts, things like that. She just bits and pieces of paper. When you're young, you know, you have these high hopes of doing things, and so you save anything that will remind you of that. We have stamping here. It's a vintage image of some roses, which makes a tuck spot for a printout of a postcard. This is a large pocket. It's made from a book about Notre Dame, excuse me. This is a very old picture. You can see that it has the gold gilding, and I can't remember the name of this style of art, but it is a printout of that very old painting about the workers building Notre Dame. Here's just one of those vintage receipts. This is just a journaling card, or you can put a picture on a photo map. A bit of lace here. Some fabric with a vintage button pinned on with a garment pin, some stamping, more paper. This is a piece of just what I call quilted paper that I've put together with some bits and pieces of papers and a negative of a die cut, just sewn all together. And on this side you can see another printed paper. We have a sheep stamped down here, a vintage image of art. I'm going to screw it up. I don't speak French. I have a horrible accent. Arc de Triomphe, and layered with some book page that has Paris as the title, and it speaks of a man who is traveling through Paris. You can't read it, obviously, but that's what the original book was. This is a fabric pocket here with a menu that is written mainly in French. There's also some English words. This is not terribly vintage. I got it from like a 1980s, it's a Napa Valley magazine. It's a touring Napa Valley. Oh, and I just layered it with some coffee dyed paper and gessoed and inked and sewed around for a journaling spot. Some more little collage here with a vintage image. Here is an envelope which I inked and stamped, and it just says merci beaucoup. This is it's a book page, but it is a statement that Mark Twain, this is his actual name, Mark Twain was his pen name, from the book Innocents Abroad from 1869, and is talking about his visit to Notre Dame. And so I did, oh, I forgot to tell you, I did gesso and ink the back of it, so you can journal on the back as well. And I just imagined that some friends sent that to Marguerite, just so that she could see what Mark Twain had to say about Notre Dame. A little vintage image of a rose here, which you can journal on the back of, tucked in this little tuck spot here, which is on another one of, or on the other side of that quilted page, a French saying stamped on here. I cannot tell you what it says, I'm sorry. This is a painting by Monet. I wanted to include some famous artists that were contemporary from Marguerite's time. They were not famous at the time that she was there living in Paris, but they were contemporary with her. So I just wanted to include them just as an homage to their great art. Some fabric sewn on here and some ruffled paper. Another piece of fabric here, which makes a large tuck spot for a 1896 magazine image, the cover of, and the text from the magazine is on the opposite side, which I gessoed and inked for some journaling if you chose to. The other side of that painting of the building of Notre Dame, another photo mat, and a vintage French letter, which you can journal on either of those and place pictures. A stamp of a chandelier. Fabric tabs. I was going to show you the edge of the book just so you could see all the tabs, but I'll do that after. This is an envelope made with another page from the book about Notre Dame, and this is Marie Antoinette when she was, I believe, if I remember correctly, she was christening her, one of her children, her sons. And this is her with her ladies in waiting. And I know Marie Antoinette dates pre what Marguerite would have been alive, but she would have probably been impressed by stories that she heard of Marie Antoinette. Would have been an important figure in her life. Another vintage image, receipt printed out. Just a bit of ephemera that she saved from her father who ordered some hardware. A bit of lace, a stamping of a bird cage, a chocolate wrapper. In my imagination, that's what it is. It's just a printout of an old ad. A postcard from a friend, which I did a bit of stamping on. And, what was I going to say? I don't remember what I was going to say. This is friends of hers that had visited Paris and sent her a postcard. A little bit of beads here, some fabric and ruffled paper. Clipped on here is an image. Who painted this one? Matisse. Matisse painting there, which you can of course journal on the back side of. This is a picture of Marie Antoinette in this little pocket, and there's a larger pocket behind that of fabric with just a large tag with some stamping, and a bit of the chiffon. I can't turn the page. A vintage image of Notre Dame, and this is an envelope made from the book about Notre Dame, and it is a picture of the large stained glass window, which is pictured right here, the large round window. I really loved the image of that stained glass from the interior. Some stamping down here. There's nothing in this envelope. Vintage map of France, some lace, and a bead and a star charm pinned to the tab. More tab, stamping. Another vintage postcard of from Paris, of the Eiffel Tower, and I did some stamping on the back of that as well. A paper collage here with some French text, and this is a vintage label from a fabric company. Oh, and a piece of fabric stitched on there. Another quilted page. On this side, this paper here makes a little tuck spot with a picture from Memoir painting, some stamping, a little tuck spot here with a vintage image of this woman with flowers, and it appears to be wheat. It is an advertisement of some sort. This in this tuck spot is this is from a book that I have. The book is not vintage, but this image is, and it is speaking about marjoram. Sorry for all the ums and whatnot. Some pretty geraniums on the back side of that. Some stamping. This is another one of those vintage spice and herb. I can't think. My words are not coming to me. About time. A vintage image printed on here with a frame. Another piece of the 1901 sheet music with some fabric and ribbon sewn on. A little frame stitched on there. The other half of the image from Notre Dame, and these are some vintage images of the interior of Notre Dame. Another stamp collage down there. Some fabric sewn on here with a lace flip. Another image from the toile fabric, which I just stitched on here, a woman dancing and a man playing what appears to be bagpipes. The other side of the music sheet, a vintage image of some blue flowers. Some stamping, another vintage image sewn on here to create a pocket. In the pocket is just a journaling card and another vintage receipt. There's the other side of the quilted page, and just tucked in this tiny little spot is a little advertisement for chocolate. This is some vintage wallpaper, which makes a pocket on this side, and there are some vintage images of a woman and two girls. Some stamping. Some lace sewn on here with some beaded dangle. Collage here made with an illustration from the Notre Dame book and some pattern paper, as well as a space up here to write a title. The other side of the vintage France map of France. Some stamping here, vintage image of some butterflies layered with some fabric to create a tuck spot with just a journaling card. A little fabric tuck here with a cafe receipt tucked in there. A little fabric and ribbon collage up here, and a large pocket with some fabric collaged on, and a pharmacy label and a book with another page of the, it goes this way, another page from the book about Notre Dame with just some writing space in there. And it has beads dangling off the spine. And there's the back of the book with some more of those images on the toile fabric. And there is French Memoir. I hope you enjoy that. It does have over 150 pages in this one. It is very stuffed and has lots of space to write. And it will, all the details will be on the Etsy listing, and you can check it out on the link below. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.